There are places in this world that have been forgotten, scars on the landscape, left to the mercy of time. We call them exclusion zones, wastelands. But sometimes, in the absolute deepest pocket of despair, life doesn't just survive, it endures. Our story begins not with a plea for help, but with a rumor. A whisper among urban explorers, a ghost story told by security guards. They spoke of a sound in the wreckage of the old northern processing plant, a place sealed off for over a decade. A place of twisted rebar, shattered glass, and a silence so profound it felt like a physical weight. The sound, they said, wasn't human. It was a cry that seemed to come from the concrete itself, an echo of a life that had no right to be there. This is where the search began. It wasn't a rescue mission, not yet. It was an investigation into an impossibility. Entering the plant was like descending into another world. The air was thick with the taste of rust and cold dust. Every footstep on the fractured flooring was a gamble. Weak shafts of light cut through the skeletal remains of the roof, illuminating dust motes dancing like captive spirits. The only sounds were the groaning of tortured metal, the rhythmic drip of water, and the wind, whistling a mournful tune through hollowed-out machinery. This place was a tomb. For 2 days, the search yielded nothing but decay. Every shadow was a dead end. Every echo, a trick of the wind. Hope began to feel like a dangerous delusion. Then, on the 3rd day, in the deepest sub-basement where the darkness was absolute, there was a break. Not a sound, but a smell. The unmistakable, acrid scent of an animal den, a desperate attempt to carve out a territory from the rot. Following it meant crawling on hands and knees through a collapsed ventilation shaft. The space narrowed, the air grew tight, suffocating. This was the point of no return, a place where every instinct screamed to turn back. And that is where he found her. She wasn't a dog. She was a specter, a creature of dust and desperation, huddled behind a fallen boiler. Her fur was so matted with grime it looked like armor. But it was her eyes that stopped the heart. They were not the eyes of a pet. They were the ancient, piercing eyes of a wild thing. 2 dying embers glowing in the oppressive dark, reflecting the single beam from the searcher's headlamp. She didn't bark. She didn't whine. She just issued a low, vibrating growl that was pure terror. A warning from a creature that had only ever known a world of shadows and threats. She was cornered, trapped between the machinery that was her only home and this new, terrifying intruder. The first 5 hours were a stalemate, a silent war of attrition. The searcher laid down a small offering of food, then retreated to the edge of the light. The creature just stared, trembling, muscles tensed to bolt, though there was nowhere left to run. Any movement was met with that same terrifying growl. This wasn't a rescue. It was a siege. The searcher began to speak, his voice kept low, a monotone murmur meant to become part of the background noise. He spoke of the sun, of soft grass, of a world she had never known. Slowly, agonizingly, the architecture of her fear began to show cracks. Hunger is a powerful, betraying force. She would look at the food, then at the man, her body shaking with the conflict. The growl softened, becoming a whine of confusion. He slid the food closer. A long, agonizing pause. Then, a skeletal head darted forward, snatched the food, and retreated into the dark. It was a small victory, a fragile truce. For the next offering, he had to stay closer. He didn't move. He just sat, hands visible, breathing slowly, making himself small, non-threatening. He was a guest in her tomb. He sat there as the hours bled into one another, until the cold of the concrete seeped into his bones. Finally, she took a step out of the shadows. The light revealed the true extent of her suffering. She was a skeleton draped in filthy rags, one leg held at a painful, unnatural angle. She was a survivor, a miracle of resilience. And she was dying. She crept forward, sniffing the air. She nudged the food, and then, in a moment that defied all logic of her existence, she looked at the man. And she did not growl. He extended a hand, gloved and slow, holding it palm up for what felt like an eternity. She stared at it, the thing that had likely only ever meant pain. She leaned in, sniffed it, and then the briefest, driest touch of her tongue against the leather. It was permission. Getting her out was its own ordeal. She couldn't walk and wouldn't be led. The searcher wrapped her in his own jacket, a bundle of fragile bones and surprising weight. She was rigid with terror, but she did not fight. It was as if the last of her energy had been spent on that final act of trust. He crawled backward through the ventilation shaft, pulling her with him, climbing the broken stairwells, shielding her body with his own. And then, for the first time in what must have been her entire life, she felt the sky. She emerged into the gray twilight, blinking against a world that was too big, too loud, too bright. She hid her face in the jacket, completely overwhelmed. The rescue was complete, but the real battle, the one for her soul, had just begun. They called her Echo for the place she was found, and for the way she seemed to be a fading resonance of a life. The first weeks were clinical. Vets worked to mend her broken body and untangle years of neglect. She endured it all with a terrifying stillness. She was a ghost in a new house, haunting the soft beds and full food bowls, untouched. She didn't know how to be a dog. A raised hand made her flinch. A kind word made her retreat. This new world of soft light and gentle hands was a language she couldn't comprehend. Her rescuer simply sat with her, just as he had in the darkness of the basement. He sat on the floor for hours at a time, reading a book aloud, working, expecting nothing. He was a fixed point in her frightening new universe. The breakthrough didn't come with a flash of light. It came with a sound. A storm raged outside, the thunder rattling the windows, mimicking the groans of the processing plant. Echo was trembling, trapped in the memory of her past. Her rescuer lay down on the floor, flat on his back. He didn't approach her. He simply lay there, vulnerable. She watched him, her intelligent eyes processing this strange act. She crawled from her corner, low to the ground. She sniffed his face. And then, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of her entire life, she laid her head on his chest. It was the first time she had willingly initiated contact. It was not a plea for comfort. It was a silent pact, a recognition. You were in the dark with me. I will be in the storm with you. From that moment, the ghost began to fade. The true dog, buried beneath a lifetime of survival, began to emerge. They discovered her first tail wag, a hesitant, awkward motion. They discovered her bark, not a growl of terror, but a sharp, clear sound of interest. The leg healed. The fur grew in, soft and bright. The eyes, once like dying embers, became clear, sharp, and full of an almost human intelligence. She learned to run on grass. At first, she was cautious, testing the soft ground as if it were a trap. Then, an explosion of pure, unbridled joy. A sprint that was a celebration of freedom. She learned the warmth of a fireplace, the comfort of a friend. We look at stories like this, and we think we are the rescuers. We believe we are the ones offering salvation. But the truth is often more complex. In the abandoned places of our own lives, in the ruins of our own fears, we all have a part of us that is trapped, starving, and afraid to trust. We are all waiting in the dark. Echo didn't just find a home. She taught her rescuer, and all of us, what it means to truly survive. She is a living, breathing testament that no darkness is so complete that a single light cannot pierce it. She is a reminder that the most profound bonds are not forged in comfort, but are tempered in the fire and earned in the ruins. And that, in the end, is the most thrilling story of all. Thank you so much for watching this incredible journey. If Echo's story moved you, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more stories of hope and resilience. We'll see you in the next one.